It's the most wonderful time of the year. Almost. Autumn is almost upon us, and with it, the giant blanket of coziness it brings. Now, I've been ready for autumn since like August 1st, and I needed somewhere to put all of those great autumn vibes. One of my favorite things about autumn and wintertime is that it is prime soup season. We're talking chili, we're talking beef stew, we're talking broccoli cheddar, and don't forget the cornbread, the biscuits, the homemade bread, you name it. It's been a while since I had time to paint a foodie spread, or foodles, as I like to call them, so I figured this was the perfect time to create a soup spread. But of course, you can't forget dessert, so we're also sculpting some cinnamon rolls and chocolate chip cookie magnets. Now some might say,
Allie, it's too early for autumn. We've still got a few weeks left.
And to that I say,
Phooey.
Your girl needs some coziness, and there's nothing more cozy than autumn. So, for this sketchbook spread, I wanted to make it a little bit more personal and try something a little bit different. I've been seeing a lot of journal and sketchbook collages on YouTube and Instagram, and I wanted to give it a try for myself. I have an absolutely ridiculous amount of scrapbook paper and stickers and washi tape, and this seemed like a really great opportunity to actually get it out and use it. I have this terrible tendency to hoard stationery supplies because I'm like,
but wait, what if at some obscure moment in the distant future I find a better spot for this one particular sticker?
I really am trying to get out of that mindset and actually use the supplies I own instead of leaving them to sit in a gigantic binder where no one can appreciate them. But anywho, I wanted to create a little inspiration collage for the actual paintings, using some autumny papers and such, and brainstorming different soups and sides to paint. I tried to create a similar color palette to what I'd be using for the actual paintings too. I really loved this little spicy mustard paint swatch. I think it's such a cute little addition. Also, the adorable bread stickers are from Ethereal Artist on Instagram. Y'all should definitely go check her out. Lovely stationery, lovely clay creations, lovely person. I did attempt a bit of fun lettering for the collage. It didn't turn out great. I find lettering extremely fascinating, but it is not something that I am at all good at yet. But you know what? Art's not about being good at everything. It's about exploring and trying new things and just having fun with it. That said, I do get really frustrated when I'm not good at something, a character flaw I'm trying to overcome. Anywho, I wrote down the main dishes and the sides, the tools, the ingredients I wanted to include, and I was ready to begin painting. Now the plan was that this wasn't just going to be a spread in my sketchbook. I did have a little bit of an ulterior motive here. This year, I've really been trying to prepare ahead of time for making like seasonal products instead of getting to December 23rd and going,
should I be making a Christmas sticker or something?
I already had another autumn sticker sheet that I was going to be printing, and I thought a soup sticker sheet would be really, really cute. I wanted to have a super professional, actually planned out autumn shop drop, and I wanted to turn this spread into a sticker sheet for it. So as I was sketching, I was thinking about creating a nice composition on the sketchbook page itself, and about what I could reasonably fit on a 5x7 sticker sheet. I thought a lot about shape and size for each element. We needed some hero bigger stickers as well as some little filler stickers. I think those are called sticker flakes. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not up to date on my sticker terminology, apparently. Anywho,
I tried to make a relatively detailed sketch for each element because it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the painting process. Once we arrived at the actual painting portion of the project, I made it a whole experience. In an earlier video on building your own creative practice, I talk about this as like set dressing. It's not crucial to the practice, but it definitely makes it an experience. Baking some tea, lighting a cozy candle, setting the mood for how I wanted to feel while painting so those cozy vibes would flow out into the painting itself. One of the most important things I've learned over the course of my journey through these foodle spreads is that having a cohesive color palette makes all the difference. During my very first spread, I wasn't at all thinking about unifying the different paintings. I was simply sketching and painting for practice. Each element was individual, it wasn't about making a cohesive spread, which is fine. The goal was learning to paint and draw, not creating a really great composition or color palette. For the next spread, I had a more unifying theme of jams, but I still wasn't really giving color much of a thought. I'm still proud of that page, but it definitely falls short in the color cohesion department. For the next spread, however, I really started to take color and composition a lot more seriously. I mapped out a better composition of big, medium, and small shapes, and actually planned out a palette. The elements fit together not just in this treat box theme, but also in the color palette. And the same went for the next spread I did too. So for this spread, I came into it armed with a much greater respect for the importance of color. I wanted it to say
autumn.
Lots of warm tones, lots of golds, warmer greens, and for a bit of a challenge, copper. Not just copper color, copper material. One thing I'm discovering is that metal is very confusing to paint. It takes on surrounding colors very quickly. The transitions from light to shadow are not always linear, they kind of jump around a little bit. But I knew copper was going to look really nice with this warmer green, so I did try to give it my best effort. The salt shaker lid and the chicken vegetable soup turned out the best, I think. The chili pot...
It's not horrid, but it's not my favorite.
This spread was probably the most challenging so far. There were a lot of textures, a lot of transparent or translucent elements, and a lot of circular shapes. Now, I struggled to sketch circles, let alone paint them. So all these top-down views of soup bowls, they were a struggle. Painting the soups themselves, though, was probably the most difficult. Because the broth is transparent, it creates this kind of edge on the veggies and such sitting in it. It's saturated, but the color of the veggies and meat underneath is also affecting the color of the broth. Truthfully, it was a lot of guesswork for me. I did make a little reference board on Pinterest just to try to get a basic idea of how soup looks, but I wung it a lot. Same goes with the highlights too. The highlights in soup are weird. Another area of struggle was the butter elements, like on the biscuit and the cornbread later on. Butter is more translucent, especially as it begins to melt, and truthfully, I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up bringing in some colored pencils later on just to try to fix it up a little bit, but I'm not fully sure I achieved the look I was going for in the end. Anywho, I loved painting the loaf of bread. Not the sourdough loaf.
That one turned out more like a potato.
But the rectangular loaf was a ton of fun. So one of the things that I learned from Light Pondering's A New Way to Think About Colors video on YouTube on painting appealing foods is using temperature-based intensity versus value-based intensity. So what this basically means is as the food shifts from light to shadow, the shadows become more saturated. So if you were simply adding value, those shadows would just be getting darker and grayer. By shifting the temperature with the value, it brings this vibrancy to food that makes it look delicious. He used an example from Ratatouille, which is one of my favorite Pixar movies. You should definitely go check out his video. Lots of great information there. Now, I wasn't fully effective with this technique in every one of the elements. Some of the breads still have a little bit of a grayer look in some areas, but again, it's not about perfection. It's about learning and building those skills and having fun with the paintings. Let's talk about today's sponsor,
Me.
On September 1st, I'm releasing my new autumn products, including this soup season sticker sheet, a harvest sticker sheet, which you may remember these paintings from a previous video, and some autumn dessert magnets. Now, I only made 10 of each magnet, so it's first come, first serve on those, but there are a ton of sticker sheets, and if you want, you can bundle them to save a few dollars. The goal for this collection was to share my love of autumn with you guys and to spread the coziness as far and wide as I possibly can. My shop now has international shipping, so location is no longer an issue. If you'd like to pick up some cozy items, you can use the code COZY23 for 10% off your purchase. Now back to the art. Let's do a little bit of sculpting before we finish those soup paintings. Now, I'd love to be one of those artists that make the cozy little ASMR art videos where you hear the scratch of the pencil or the clinking of the sculpting tools. But that's not a possibility because apparently I breathe like Darth Vader when I work.
I'm not even joking, it's obnoxious.
And I never realized this about myself until I turned the sound up on my video footage one time and was like,
Bro, am I dying?
So, you'll have to make do with a voiceover. So it had been a while since I'd last had a chance to play with clay, and it was a bit slow going at first. I knew I wanted to make some dessert magnets for the shop update, so I at least had a little bit of a theme going into it. Let me tell you, the cinnamon rolls are deceptively hard. I've tried the rolling technique where you take a long flat rectangle of clay and roll it into a cinnamon roll, but it's not super effective with the kind of clay that I use. I think that's more of a technique for polymer clay. So I used an old washi tape roll to make sure each cinnamon roll would be roughly the same size. But then I had to smooth out the edge that the tape roll made. It was a whole deal. One of the things I'm learning about sculpting cinnamon rolls is that you can't just make a line where the spiral is. There's this little problem called displacement. So you make that line and that clay doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. So either it's going down, which makes the bottom of the roll no longer flat, or it goes out, which creates a really wonky top. I got some clay tools for my birthday, which included some little scraper thingies, which were very handy for scraping out the clay of the spiral. I'd make a bit of a line where the spiral would go and then start just digging. It looks awful at first, but with a little water and this nice little rubber tip tool, it actually smooths out pretty well. I do the same thing for the edge where a cinnamon roll would kind of fold over on itself, add some texture back in, and let it dry. And rinse and repeat for the other ones. I did try to improve the spiral with each one, trying to get more of that characteristic spiral lift in the middle. But not every real-life cinnamon roll looks the same. So, now these are definitely the biggest clay cookies I've ever attempted. Most of the previous ones have been like a 1/4 inch diameter, so this was definitely a new experience. The first one went okay. It's not quite as textured as I'd like it to be, and the chocolate chips were
kind of round and weird.
But for the second and third, I tried a new method. Rather than scraping away to create the little mounds in the cookie, I added clay and smoothed down the edges to mold it to the cookie base. I think this was definitely a lot more effective and gave it a bit more of a realistic cookie look. Those chocolate chips take up space inside a cookie and create a lot of little bubbles and mounds. For the chocolate chips on these ones, I carved them out instead, using the rubber tip to make a line and mold that excess clay into the chocolate chip itself. Like any other medium, clay is a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of doing something and going,
"Oh, that didn't work."
Or succeeding in a new technique and improving on it. I really do love sculpting, but I particularly love adding the color later on. Especially with the cinnamon rolls, because I love making the icing. But for now, those need to dry, so let's get back to the soup spread. So what says autumn to you? Do you have any fall traditions that you do, or a particular candle that you bring out for fall, or a special fall soup that you eat? The first day of fall is an event in my family. Well, at least for my mom and I. I don't think anybody else really cares that much, but
we do.
This year we have a first day of fall super fun plan. It's on a Saturday this year, so we're getting the most delicious gluten-free cinnamon rolls from our local bakery for breakfast, putting on a crock pot of soup, and making some homemade bread. We're also getting out all of our fall decorations. I bought a new candle for the occasion. Let me tell you, it's taking every ounce of willpower I have not to light it before then.
It's a struggle, man.
Anywho, I feel like now's a good time to talk about what's next for my art, for my business, all the things. I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but I want to dive a little bit deeper. So launching the website and newsletter was definitely a big step and a very fruitful one for sure. If you've ever tried starting your own business, whether it's art related or not, everyone will tell you that having an email list is the most effective form of marketing. And this was advice that I had been ignoring for years. Truthfully, anything to do with technology,
it psychs me out.
I get very overwhelmed very easily. I've literally been using the same software to edit my YouTube videos for over a year now, and I still stick with the same parts of the software and do not venture out into the unknown. I stick with cut, color, and deliver, and nothing else. So with this fear of technology, starting an email list was not something I believed I was at all capable of doing. Everyone makes it look so easy, and I knew for me it would not be. But like I talked about in one of the very first videos this year, I'm trying to step out of my comfort zone and try new things in both art and in business. Getting the email list started really wasn't that difficult, to be fair.
I'm gonna be honest, I felt pretty dumb when I realized how easy it was.
Writing the first newsletter, though, was a process. Almost immediately, I was like,
but what should I write about? Is this too long? Is anyone even gonna read it?
And to my surprise, it was actually a lot of fun. I don't write as often as I would like, but I really do enjoy it. I think writing for me is a lot like painting. It's a way to communicate without physically speaking. Starting my newsletter, I knew I wanted it to be a cozy space. Not just for me, but for the readers too. I want every newsletter to just help them slow down for a few minutes and be present and to receive something. Whether that's words of encouragement or showing them a pretty painting. Social media is an extremely loud place, and I feel like emails are a little bit quieter form of communicating. It feels more one-on-one, just sharing something with each other, and I really like that. Building a social media community is great, but building individual relationships with the people who seek out my art is really important to me. Anywho, so starting the newsletter was a big step, and it's one that I'm really enjoying. Starting the website and online shop has also been really fruitful. In my video on artist money struggles, I talked a little bit about how frustrating it can be sometimes when you're not seeing the financial fruits of your labor. I'm so happy to say that sales have actually picked up quite a bit, and I am starting to see some improvement in the financial department. Guys, I even got my first international sale, which was extremely exciting. It never ceases to amaze me that people all around the world can connect with my art and want to bring it into their lives. So, what's next? What's the plan here? Truthfully, I'm not fully sure. My big art goal for this year was to complete 20 illustrations using the themes from the Scene Studies Challenge, and I believe I'm still on track to finish it. As of right now, I have 8 more to go, which is a fair amount, but if all goes according to plan, I should get them done. This goal is really important to me. It's a way for me to reconnect with my art and my imagination and to make something of my own. It's a way for me to prove to myself that I can be disciplined and complete another challenge. It's also a chance to grow my skills and to take what I learned from the Scene Studies Challenge and put it into action. There have been a few illustrations so far this year that have kind of missed the mark a bit, but even with those ones, I have learned and I've grown. And there's still things that I do like about them. So one of the business goals I have, I guess it's not fully a goal, one of the hopes I have is to maybe do a Kickstarter project either at the end of the year or in the beginning of 2024. There have been a lot of requests for prints of the illustrations I've done this year, and I'd really love to be able to just do one big print order. Prints can be pretty expensive for me to have done. It's a very large upfront cost, and I want to make sure that there's enough interest in having new prints made before I just jump in and do it. So whether that's running a Kickstarter or doing a pre-order kind of thing in my shop, I'm not quite sure yet. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, if prints are something you're interested in, and if you'd be interested in backing a Kickstarter or pre-order kind of thing. So we've come to the painting portion of the clay creations. Now I always prime them first just to knock out that terracotta color. A lot of my paints are pretty transparent, so trying to paint over a darker tone can be a very big struggle. The afternoon I painted these was a really nice one. I watched Princess Mononoke while I painted, which is admittedly a little bit more gruesome than the cozy fall vibes of the clay magnets themselves, but it's fine.
I had fun.
Great music, beautiful scenery, it all works. So I got this base doughy color down for each sculpture, then went in one at a time to build up the color. I really love building up the gradient on the cinnamon rolls. That area where it fades from the dough color into golds into that rich kind of brown on top. It's a bit more subtle with the cookies. I don't go quite as dark on the edges, but there's still a little bit of a gradient from the crispy edges to the gooier middle. Now painting the cinnamon roll filling is a bit more challenging. There's a lot more precision that goes into that. Also same for the chocolate chips. I had to do my best not to go over the edges. Accidents happen, of course, but I did try my best. My favorite part was most definitely putting the icing on the cinnamon rolls. It's quite literally the icing on the experience, and I really think it completes the look. It's this mixture of cornstarch, a bit of white paint, glue, vinegar, I think something else, but I'm forgetting what it is. It's very thick and very satisfying to stir, let me tell you. I love making the little drippy effects down the sides. Unfortunately, due to my lack of camera awareness, I missed getting a lot of the painting and icing part actually in the camera frame. My apologies, I am working on this, but it can be very difficult to paint with a camera in the way. Anyhow, I'm actually really happy with how the soup spread and the clay magnets turned out. It was such a joy to create with all those cozy autumn vibes in mind and the experience fall a little bit ahead of time. If you're interested in adopting a magnet or some sticker sheets, they'll be available in my online shop on September 1st. And if you want to be notified when the new items drop, you can sign up for my newsletter too. Huge thank you to the Cozy Club over on Patreon for helping to support my art journey. You guys are such a huge encouragement to me, and I really love being able to share my art with you. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye guys!